Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This time, I'm going to be reviewing Donkey Kong Minecart Madness at the brand new Universal Epic Universe. So let's just jump right into this. One thing before we continue, this will not be a spoiler-free review. I will be going in-depth about the ride's story, queue, and the actual ride experience. This is your warning. Donkey Kong Minecart Madness is a new concept from Universal Creative named the Boom Coaster, where the real track is on the side and there is a fake track above that is designed to help give the illusion that the cart is jumping the track. I'll touch on that in a moment. The mini-land of Donkey Kong Country is basically just the coaster, and this is great as you can see the ride from almost anywhere in the land, adding good kinetics and picture opportunities. As you approach the entrance, the sign looks like a temple dig site / arch. You can look up and see the golden temple with water spilling from the mouth and the minecarts flying above. To the right of the entrance is the test seat. When you enter in under the arch, you turn into a section of covered extended queue that sits between a section of the coaster and the temple wall. You then return and enter the golden temple that has a touch point for the power-up band. You walk down a kind of plain hallway, and then up some ramps and enter into an indoor cattle pen area with a small statue and some cave drawings on the wall, as well as some slanted windows to let air in. You then turn a corner to see the Cranky Kong animatronic sitting in his chair. This animatronic is very jerky and honestly kind of bad, especially compared to the other animatronics in the park. You then continue down a pretty plain hallway with some basic temple theming and more of the slanted windows, before you round a corner and get your glimpse at the load station that has some more wooden beams adding to the gold. You continue down along the edge of the load station and back around, getting a good glimpse at the carts before stepping onto the moving belt and boarding the ride vehicle. Throughout this area, you can hear a very annoying audio loop from, I believe, Cranky Kong, and it drove me crazy standing there for even 10 minutes. The queue is honestly bad. It's just so plain and gold. It's honestly boring. And the capacity of the ride is terrible, so you're standing in it forever. The trains themselves are tiny, holding only 4 people in a stadium-style seating, with the front being lower and the back being a little higher. The cart has good room, though, with pretty comfortable seats and good but long lap bars that kind of remind me of the Gerstlauer lap bars like on Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. Theming is pretty good, like a ramshackle minecart made of wood and steel with the fake wheels that actually turn. It's a pretty neat looking little ride vehicle, so I don't really have any complaints about it except for the fact that it can only hold 4 people. Now, let's start with the actual ride portion. The ride starts with a 180-degree right-hand turn in front of Dixie Kong. Then the ride climbs the first lift hill. This is surprisingly a lift hill and not a launch, and the chain engage is ridiculously rough. You then climb the lift hill kind of bouncing, which isn't awful, because this is supposed to be a rougher part of the ride, before the lift picks up speed and sends you through a giant barrel. This leads into a small dip and pop-up. This element is just way too slow and does nothing before leading into some straight track and, I believe, some trim brakes. You coast through the straight track and then enter a 270-degree downward turn into a small room. This turn is so shuffly and rough, I had a splitting headache as soon as we started going down it. The turn is preceded by the fake track continuing forward and turning, and Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong in a minecart knocking you off track. This is the first place where you see the real track completely breaking the immersion. The track rises up and into another straight track section where you can see some of the land that has good theming, but the ride is still shaking around. You dip down and then rise up into what should be an airtime hill, but there is absolutely no airtime, and just more shaking side to side. The train then rides into a slightly upward 180-degree turn to the right that is still just bouncing all over the place, shaking up your head and neck. The train unbanks into an indoor section and some straight track. This is what should be a highly themed dark ride portion, but it kind of feels cheap. You descend down and rock back and forth like you're supposed to be jumping on different tracks to avoid obstacles, but it's mostly a black room with a few minecart props and then the fake track where you can see the supports holding up the track and you can see the real track that you're riding on. This portion kind of reminds me of a Wild Mouse, I'm going to be honest, with some janky lateral turns that don't really provide that many laterals. It's like a really highly trimmed Wild Mouse. The train levels out and rides into a 90-degree turn to the right and engages the second lift hill. At this point in the ride, my head and neck hurt so bad, I was just hoping the ride would break down and evac at the base of the lift hill. Sadly, it didn't. After disengaging the lift, the train rides in front of the Golden Temple and then turns down in a descending 90-degree turn to the right past the Tiki Tong statue before the track ascends and shifts slightly, leveling out into a straight track section. This was probably the roughest part of the ride, and it's sad. You go into a slightly descending 180-degree turn past some screaming tikis before leveling out into a straight, fake splashdown. The track rises up into another straight track segment before getting to the only left-hand turn on the entire ride. This turn brings you inside where you see a Donkey Kong animatronic hit a button and lights illuminate a golden banana in Diddy Kong as the ride vehicle goes around one final right-hand turn before returning to the unload station. This final scene is kind of small and the theming is just bland and honestly lackluster. The ride overall really was not great. The theming is just meh. The outside portions were great theming wise because the ride is so well integrated into the land, making it a theming element of the land itself with a lot of plants, some good temple theming, and that makes the ride good outside, but the indoor scenes are so bland and lackluster with the mediocre theming. Like, Yoshi's is a little bit bland, but you kind of expect it because it's more of a family ride, but Mario Kart is so high themed and Donkey Kong should have been the same way. I don't know why the theming seems so, like, sparse and cheap on the indoor portions of the ride. The queue was also very bland. It's nice that it's mostly inside, but the theming is just okay. Then, the actual way the ride vehicle rides on the track is awful. I could see that you are on a minecart, and it's supposed to be a little rough, but this gave me a splitting headache and a sore neck. The ride is just way too rough and shaky. Then there's the effect of jumping the track, which to me really does not work that well. Even in sections without banking or gaps, you can still see the real track. And maybe it's just because I'm tall, but this effect really doesn't work on most of the turns at all. Overall, I really didn't like Donkey Kong Minecart Madness. This was definitely my least favorite attraction so far at Epic Universe, and one of my least favorite coasters overall, ranking it 229 out of 244. This thing really is awful, and I've rode a lot of bad coasters. But that's all for this time, and if you want to hear a more positive review, go watch one of the other Epic Universe videos. But with that being said, we'll see you all next time on another adventure.